Just rubbing it?
Yeah.
I think you're dusting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we're
Hi, I'm Ali from Twin Thrift Vintage. We're a shop in Ellicott City, Maryland, and we sell vintage decor and more. And I'm here to tell you about the 5 things that you should know from moving from an online business to opening a brick and mortar shop. So Twin Thrift Vintage got started during the pandemic in 2020. My twin sister and I were lifelong collectors of glass, decor, mid-century pieces, and we needed a way to kind of refresh our own inventory and get rid of some of the things that we really loved and enjoyed. So we built a Facebook marketplace, an Etsy shop, and a Poshmark shop. And we managed them all through our basement, through a storage unit, but then realized we wanted to have a bigger presence. We felt like we had enough revenue, enough success, enough brand authority to open a brick and mortar. So 2024, we were able to lease a small space at a historical church out here in Ellicott City, and we've been here for almost 2 years running this shop. And then we also have expanded to an antique mall and are looking for a potential third spot. So we've moved from an online presence into the brick and mortar space and have kind of paused the online presence right now while we focus on the brick and mortar. So the first point to think about is how your marketing strategy is going to have to shift when you move from an online business to a brick and mortar. When you're online, you have to optimize your Instagram, your Facebook, your website to point people in the direction of going to a site online where they don't have to get up and get into their car. They don't have to, get a babysitter. They don't have to really do anything except use their mouse, have a couple clicks, and purchase something from your shop. A brick and mortar is asking your customers to come to a physical location during prescribed hours, sift through a bunch of inventory that might be nicely displayed, might be a little chaotic for them, and then asking them to swipe their credit card, bring some cash, whatever your point of payment might be. So when you're thinking about your marketing strategy, moving from an online business to a brick and mortar, what you need to consider is all the things you might need to optimize. A Google business page, your website with clear directions, clear prescriptions on how to get into your business, the hours of your business, and what they'll need to do in terms of checking out. And then a lot of the creativity that you're going to have to put into is just showcasing that this is a shop that you want to be at, that people want to shop at. And so a lot of it comes down to displays, whereas you might have a great Instagram, a great presence, but it has to translate into a physical location. So what we do here at Twin Thrift is we make sure Instagram is full of color, showcases our new products. We post twice daily to make sure everybody knows we're active and that they can come to the shop and have a great experience. And then we're constantly optimizing our Google business page to make sure we're asking for reviews, which Google prioritizes, keeping our website up to date, keeping fresh pictures of inventory, all of this to ensure when someone comes to the shop, the experience that they see online is what they will get when they enter Twin Thrift Vintage, which is a little different than when we were back in 2020 on Facebook Marketplace and Etsy, where we really just had to make sure the picture of the product was the best it could be, and then people just were able to click and shop. So the second thing to know about moving from an online business into a brick and mortar is how you're going to manage logistics around your inventory and making sure you're not selling online and selling in the brick and mortar the same object, which we had done several times, which led us to pausing our Etsy account. And we're still trying to figure out if we can have an online presence as well as a brick and mortar. So what we do in order to make sure our inventory stays fresh and accurate is we label everything by season and by color. Some of our design aesthetic at the shop is around rainbow and theming things by reds, oranges, yellows, but then we also have seasonal displays in the center. So we have to make sure when we are able to pull new inventory into the shop, we know where it is, we know how long we've had it, and we know what it should be priced at. So let's say we've had something for 2 years, we've brought it out onto the floor now twice, we're gonna price that lower and we're gonna be able to discount or have a more flexible price than if something's net new to the shop and we wanna, sell it for market value. This is really important too to stay organized as you're moving from online to brick and mortar, because online you have the time, the space perhaps to just pull things casually. You have a 7-day window to ship something. Here, if you have holes in your inventory, People are going to notice. Your shop might not look as full. You might not have the right things that your customers are coming in and purchasing repeatedly. For example, here we sell $2 napkins and we sell dried flowers. They're some of our biggest sellers, and we constantly have to stay on top of that inventory and make sure we're restocking appropriately so it doesn't feel empty and so people can come in, find what they expect, so we're not missing out on potential sales because we have holes, because we can't find something, whether it's in storage or whether it's just in our car or what have you. So making sure your logistics around your inventory is super important. So the next point that's super important to review before you enter a brick and mortar is your location and your lease. Some places, depending on if it's a true brick and mortar that you have to rent outright yourself or you're part of a larger business where you're maybe renting some square footage, are going to have a lot of different things in the lease that you need to make sure you're comfortable with before you sign for whether it's 6 months, month to month, or a year. You're also going to want to make sure the location that you're choosing has high foot traffic. You're able to be going to restock, to clean, to refresh. So both of those things are really important. And what we've learned is we sort of have two lease strategies right now. One is where we're renting a partial space in an antique mall where everything's handled for us. And the other is we're renting a much larger space and kind of being treated as the operator of the business, where we're not under the brand of an antique mall, we're under our own brand of Twin Thrift Vintage. And so what we had to look through in both leases are what were the lease terms, what are the additional things outside of rent that we're going to be responsible for. So here, for example, is triple net. We pay additional fee to cover things like landscaping, parking, if it snows, to get the parking lot plowed, things like that. And then what are we going to be responsible for should something happen? You know, if something on the floor breaks or someone gets injured here. So do we need insurance? And if we do, what is the minimum for that insurance? There's a lot of logistics that go into the lease that protect both the small business owner and the building owner as well, that you just need to negotiate with and make sure you have really clear understanding so you don't find yourself in a pickle when it comes to not knowing maybe why you're getting charged a fee, why rent is this way, all of that stuff. So negotiating is key. And then on the location front, just making sure you understand what the business volume looks like. You don't want to invest thousands of dollars for no foot traffic, right? So really scoping out, making sure you can handle the location, the size of your business, and making sure you understand kind of the rules of the road with how the year, the 6 months, however long you're leasing, what that's going to look like. Now, if you're buying, we've never bought a property, so that's an entirely different story. So the fourth tip I have, which sort of ladders back to your lease and your location, is your point of sale. How are you going to get folks money? How are you going to take each transaction, and what kind of taxes and everything do you need to make sure is in that point of sale so you don't end up on April 15th owing a huge amount of money because let's say you didn't collect state tax, right? So right now at Twin Thrift Vintage, we use second parties to collect our sales. So we don't have a cash register here. We go through our neighbors who run everything out of their own business, and it helps us keep our overhead nice and lean. And it makes sure that we're capturing details around what's selling, tax, how much things cost, the ability to discount. So if you are gonna, purchase your own point of sale system, it's best to know, how do you want to take payment? How do you need to report on your sales? How do you need to report on your discounting? All of that kind of stuff wraps into what type of technology you'll need. So we use, for example, a tool called Quail at our antique mall, which lets all the different vendors kind of tap in to an app and see their sales and everything. It's very transparent. Here at the main Twin Thrift Vintage, we use Square, where we don't have as much visibility, but we have a lot more control over putting things, itemized things into the system, making sure we can use QR codes should we need it, and getting really detailed between the different businesses of what's selling, what's our inventory look like, and just like a lot more data and tracking. So it's really important to just understand how to take payment. It's really easy online for someone to go onto Etsy, click a button, use PayPal, use Venmo, use Cash App. But in person, it's a little more difficult because there are some fees, for example, associated with using a credit card versus debit versus cash that you'll just want to be aware of when you're setting out for a brick and mortar location. My final tip is around staffing, something that can really eat into how much money you're getting at the end of the month that you can pay back and re-pour into your business is who is staffing your store. And so what we have learned is Jordan and I handle the lion's share of cleaning, restocking, pricing, packaging, displays. So we're not paying somebody or a third party to manage that for us and to be maybe a shopkeeper. It just wouldn't make financial sense for us right now. However, we do pay a small percentage of every sale towards the business that checks out Twin Thrift Vintage here at our big location. And that's to ensure we don't need to hire someone full-time. We can just pay for each sale, give a percentage to the company, and they act as our part-time staff, if you will. But this is really important to think about: what time commitment do you need to devote to a physical location? How much help do you need, whether it's standing up the business? We had to hire contractors, for example, to help us with some of the things when we were putting this shop together. What do you need on a weekly, daily basis to ensure that your business is running on the hours that you say, with the type of inventory that you're promoting online? So staffing is super important, because it's one of those things that, while you'd like a break or maybe have the weekends off, it's really going to eat into your bottom line if you have to hire a team or if you have to hire a full-time team. Some of the things that we've looked into as we're thinking about, well, what if we were to have our own shop? Could we hire an intern that we pay and they learn kind of how to run their own business or how to do marketing? Could we hire somebody who maybe is retired and just looking for a couple hours a week? Could we hire a high schooler? Whereas we don't need full-time staff right now, and you don't get rich making antiques, to be candid, but we can't, give benefits. How can we maybe do something interesting to give us time back, but also give somebody else an equitable share of a salary when or if we need full-time help? So that's something super important to think about. It is something that would be a nice to have for us right now, but as you scale your business, it's something you absolutely have to think about with a brick and mortar.